Hello, my name is Anthony, and I'm a Microsoft engineer that's going to teach you how to build your first DevOps workflow. First, we're going to start off with setting up your Azure portal and your DevOps subscription services. Then we're going to set up our service principal along with the resource group that our virtual machine is going to be deployed to. Then we're going to move on into actually creating a repository and building some infrastructure code to build our pipeline as well as the parameters for that virtual machine. And then finally, we're going to deploy an agent that is going to run our pipeline along with actually running the pipeline to deploy those virtual machines. So let's start to build up our infrastructure. You'll need two things. You'll need one, you'll need to create your Azure portal subscription account, and then you need to activate your Azure DevOps services. They'll use the same Microsoft account, so you will have to make one, and these links are below. For the Azure portal, you need to click Start Free here. It'll ask you to log in, and if you don't have an account, just create one, log in, and then you'll be all set and ready to go there. Both use the same account, but you still need to actually activate these specific services with that same account. And once you're done with that, you'll have something that looks like this for your portal. And this is what Azure DevOps will look like with your projects. The names. The next thing you have to do is you have to create a resource group. So we'll click here, create resource. We'll go to resource groups. We'll click create here. A resource group is just something that groups all your resources together, so you can name it whatever you'd like. For this, we're just gonna name it virtual machine deploy. Create that. And now we can go to that resource group. So when we deploy our virtual machine utilizing our pipeline, we'll be deploying to this resource group. Now, to connect this specific DevOps subscription to the Azure portal, we need something that's called the service connection. Essentially what this does is it connects and authorizes any action on this DevOps subscription to be done within the Azure subscription. To do this, we need to click into our project. My name is Rolling Automation. Click project settings down here, and then click service connections. Afterwards, we'll create service connection, and we're gonna click Azure Resource Manager here. We're gonna click Workload Identity Federation, and that's gonna load our subscriptions. Now, just as if we would, if we're connecting our Google account to somewhere to log in, same thing is here. We're using our Microsoft account that we logged in with our DevOps account, as well as our portal account, and we're logging in here. So I'm gonna pause here and log in with that. Now I'm logged in, and as you can see, the Visual Studio Enterprise subscription is, or whatever subscription that's named within your Azure portal, should show up here. Then we have our resource group. I'm gonna select the one that we created, Virtual Machine Deploy, because that's the one we created earlier. Now we can name this anything we want, so we'll just name this Rolly Lab. And then we can make a description saying, authorizes changes on Azure. We'll give that grant access to a pipeline since this is a lab. Save that, and now it's setting up the connection. And as you can see here, we have our service connection here, and we can see where it actually is on the Azure subscription. So we can select the Manage Service Principal, and it'll take us to Azure so we can see what we're looking at here. So as you can see here, this is an enterprise application ID, and we have this very long string of things that kind of authorizes this to make any changes on the portal itself. Moving forward, we actually have to create an agent that will run our pipeline, and we can use the computer that you're watching this video on right now. You see, a pipeline needs some sort of machine to actually take instruction and then deploy it within our Azure portal. To do this, we need to go to project settings down here, agent pools, and we need to create an agent pool. This is Yamam. I was just testing around, but we can add a new agent to the Yamam's pool, I guess. So to do this, we need to click New Agent, and then whatever specific operating system you're on, either Windows, Mac OS, or Linux, we can do that essentially. So what we need to do is we need to follow these instructions here. Go to PowerShell, press admin, and then we can copy these commands here. A little easier. Okay. And now we need to configure the agent as well. And this is where it gets a little bit tricky. So keep this Windows PowerShell up and then go over here. We are going to want this specific part of your projects. An easier way to do that is to click the Azure DevOps signal here and then click this and then copy that and paste it in here. And then we need to create an authentication type. And it says here PAT, that's called personal access token. So click enter, and now we need to create a personal access token. So up here next to your user ID, we're going to click user settings, and then personal access tokens, and we're going to click create a new token. We're going to call full access, and then we're going to name it virtual machine test. Click create, and we're going to copy that to the clipboard and then paste that in there. This is essentially giving a way to authenticate our machine with the Azure DevOps subscription that we're shown on the left here. Now to enter agent pool, we're going to go back here, and we're actually going to just put in Yamum, and then we're going to enter the agent name. This is my desktop name, so I will just keep it default. Searching for tool capabilities. And this is connected to the server, and you should get a thing that says connected to server. It's successfully added agent. We're going to keep the same work folder. And I'm going to select no to run an agent as a service. And I'm going to click no to run an agent on startup. We don't need this running all the time. We just need it running for when we need to deploy stuff for the pipeline. And for this lab, we don't need that. So perfect. So now we install our agent, and now we can go back and look to see if it works. So the way we can do that is go to project settings. And we can go to agent pools, Yamum. As you can see here, it's offline right now, but that's just because we haven't ran it yet. That's perfectly fine. So we have a desktop here showing as an agent. And then the last step that we need to do to make sure this is running properly is we need to run this. We'll just copy that and click run. Once we do this, it'll start running the agent, scanning for the tool, and this will show up as online over here. So now it is ready to go for our pipeline that we're going to build in the next step. Moving on to the next step, we actually need to build the infrastructure that will be deploying this virtual machine to our Azure subscription. So to do this, if you're up here, I have a few repositories already, but let's click Create New Repository, and we can name it Deploy ARM. Create, and now we have a repository. And the next thing we need to do is we need to clone this. So I'm going to clone, go to here. I have a git bash. If you do not have git bash, please download it below before you do this step. Shell here, git clone, and then we're going to clone using that. And then perfect. If you do have some sort of Git credential manager come up, just authenticate with that same Microsoft account you've been using the whole time, and it should work perfectly fine. So now if you look here, we have that repository. We're going to change directory into that, and now we have the main. And now we're going to git checkout, building infrastructure. So now we have our pipeline here, and we're going to add a few files. The files will be in the description. I'm just going to go ahead and copy and paste them in that I prepared, but they will be in the description for you. So now we created our pipeline. We need to add a few variables into it. So right now we have the name of our pool. It's called Yamum. The same thing goes for the Azure subscription. This is the name of the service subscription, which is actually the service connection, which is called Rolly Lab. So we'll go there. So that's Rolly Lab, the Azure subscription ID. I'll show you how to find this. If you look here and we look at subscriptions, you should only have one subscription, but the subscription that you're going to be deploying to will show up as a subscription ID here. We'll copy that. And then the resource group name, which is what we created earlier, virtual machine deploy. Perfect. So now we have that. And then the other file that we're going to be using to deploy the virtual machine is actually an Azure Resource Manager format. So it's a JSON. I don't know why it's a YAML here. Let me fix that. I guess I can't JSON. Okay, perfect. So it's a JSON. It essentially houses all of the bare bones of the virtual machine. So as you can see here, we have some properties. We have the computer name. We have an image. We have just a bunch of resources that are included within the virtual machine. So the IP address, the virtual network that it's going to be deployed on, the network interface card that the virtual machine is going to use, all of that type of stuff is all in here. And the deploy pipeline is actually referencing this specific JSON file that we are going to be using to deploy the actual machine itself. So that's pretty cool. And that is essentially the infrastructure that we're going to be building, and we need to push that to the repository now. So let's do that. Let's add all of them. Building infra. We're going to push that. Set upstream here. Push that. Bang. Perfect. Go back to the repository, and now we have a pull request here. So this is what we have, the branch we're pushing into main. We're adding these two files. Let's just create that and then complete. And voila, we now have these files in here. And now the last step is actually creating the pipeline from the files we deployed here in this repository. So moving forward to the last and final step where we can actually deploy this thing, we're going to click over to pipelines. We're going to click Create Pipeline. Now, since we have the files on our Azure repository, we're going to click this top here. We're going to click the repository here, and we're going to click Existing Azure Pipeline YAML file, and we're going to look for the path. Make sure it's the deploy pipeline.yaml, and we'll click Continue. And this is what is shown up from our file that we just committed and pushed up to this repository. Save. Now we're creating this pipeline, and let's go and run it. So if we run this pipeline here, click run, look forward, and then the first time, usually the pipeline needs permission to access the resource, so we have to click permit. And if we actually come up here, we'll see that the agent on our machine is listening for jobs, and it should take and start running this job that we requested it for on this pipeline here. Yep, so it's running the job. Refresh here so we can get some logging here. So it's running the job. Deploying. Now it's deploying, and we can see here on deployments, it is now deploying within this resource group. And now we're getting the virtual machine, we're getting the disk, we're also getting the network that the machine is going to be on, along with the network interface. And it looks like it's done. So if we go back to the pipeline, it's just finishing up the job, and you have just deployed your first Azure resource using some sort of CI/CD workflow. We created an agent that deploys that utilizing a pipeline. We created the pipeline infrastructure. And we also created some parameters that the virtual machine is going to use and be deployed with. So thank you very much. Congratulations, and I look forward to the next video. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And once you're done with this, make sure that you delete all of it because it is running and it will take up some of your free hours. So just FYI, okay? Have a great rest of your day, and I look forward to some of the comments that you put down in the video.